Accessible and affordable childcare. That is the goal of a national program that's being rolled out in every jurisdiction in Canada. But in this province, parents and childcare centers are still trying to figure out what's going to happen here. With us for more in Sudbury, Ontario, Tracy Saikowski, Executive Director of Discovery Early Learning and Care. In Vaughan, Ontario, Naila Saeed, CEO of Early Years Education System Childcare, known as EYES. And here in our studio, Priska Sebaratnam, peer parent from the neighborhood group Childcare Centers. Cassidy Comden, a private daycare provider, and Brendan Kennedy, reporter with the Toronto Star's investigations team. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
So lots to get into with this program. But before we start the discussion, I just want to remind everyone what the Ontario government has committed to with the federal government's plan for $10 a day daycare. One, reduce childcare fees by an average of 25% for children under the age of 6, retroactive to April 1st, 2022. By the end of December 2022, further reduce childcare fees by 50% on average. By September 2025, lower licensed childcare fees to an average of $10 per day. Before we get into the discussion itself, we heard the term licensed, and throughout our discussion, we'll use other terms like unlicensed, nonprofit, and for-profit. Tracy, I was hoping you could get us started here. What types of daycare are now available in Ontario?
In Ontario, there's a wide range, a patchwork of services of unlicensed home providers, licensed home providers, for-profit childcare operators, not-for-profit childcare operators, some that operate in schools, some that are standalone programs. So there's quite a bit of services that are available to families.
Do you think, not to put you on the spot or anything, do you think that, when we heard the news that we were going to get $10 a day daycare, but maybe we didn't realize how complicated it is, that space of daycare? There's so much different types of daycare.
I was thrilled, and my colleagues who've been advocating across the country for many, many years, were thrilled that the agreements were finally starting to be signed across Canada. Is there work to be done? Absolutely. We need to think about how our goal at the end of the day is to have affordable, accessible, high quality childcare services for all families and all children to be able to access.
Naila, I saw you nodding to my question. I am guessing you have a different opinion?
Definitely the program that they are trying to implement here, it is no doubt a good starter for a community that to accommodate everybody to come into that quality care, and they will be able to get that benefit of $10 within these years or until 2025. They have already started reducing the 25% under this, but we have a fear now, and we have a mixed emotions here to see how they are going to accommodate for profit, because there are a lot of the things that the nonprofit is already getting the benefit of, and under this system where they have the wage cap, there has the profit cap, and a lot of the other things in this system that we are worried about, and all our investors or all our partners and franchisees, that how it is going to actually come out.
Well, we're going to talk more about that, and we're going to bring in Brendan, who wrote a piece about this. We're going to get more into that. But Cassidy, you run an unlicensed home daycare. And I think people, when they hear unlicensed, they may think, oh, that's bad. But when they hear licensed, they think, oh, that's good. What is the difference?
So the difference is about, it's kind of obvious on the surface level. Obviously, unlicensed means I am not... I am operating like independently without any direct oversight. But I think when you hear the word licensed, it brings to mind sort of images of ministry and, maybe some type of test given, or something that is like a channel by which I then receive the rights to operate myself. But in Ontario, it's important to remember that licensing is not directly given to providers by the Ministry of Education.
Well, then who gives it?
Independent agencies, either for-profit or not-for-profit, but they are still third parties. So they're a middleman. It's a middleman who is licensed by the ministry and then extends their license to independent providers, who are most typically independent contractors operating underneath them. And the licensing is contingent on their continued affiliation with that private entity.
And because you're unlicensed, you don't belong. You don't.
I do
benefit
not
from this
belong
program.
to an agency, is what that means in practice.
Okay, we're going to come back to that in a little bit, but I want to bring it back to the $10 a day program. Nyla, what type of daycare is yours, and has it opted into the program?
We are for profit and also under the franchisee model. So we are the franchisor, and we have definitely opted in. Some of our centers already received that 25% base fee that we have to reimburse now to the parents. These days, our locations are busy in calculating, reimbursing the reduced fees and how it's going to be in future, the reduced rates that the 25% that the parents are going to pay upfront now. And definitely parents are excited. They are happy to receive all these reimbursement. But as an operator, as I mentioned, like we are still trying to gauge how this will all map out and how it's going to impact the overall financials viability of the centers for our franchisees. I think we definitely have to wait a few more months and to see how the results is going to come up, how the fundings are going to line up, how we are going to get the support under it.
And Tracy, your daycare has opted into the program. How would you say it's going so far?
It's going amazing. The city of Sudbury in total has I have the figures right here. So we have 17 operators in the city. From those 17, 14 have already opted in. 3 others are waiting and are in the process of opting in. So our city has embraced the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system in full force. Our municipality has been so supportive with our operators to ask questions, to answer questions, to find answers to questions. So it's going really well. Families are most excited. They have received their 25% either rebate check or credit note to their child's account, depending if they're still with us or not, retroactive back to April the 1st. So we're really quite excited to be able to offer that to families. Definitely looking forward to %. And now for us to take some time and tackle the other pieces that need to be happening at the same time. Most importantly, the workforce crisis.
Priska, you're a parent.
Yes.
How old is your child?
She turned 18 months today.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
I love that age. Well, almost terrible twos. She's
perfect, though.
I mean, they're perfect, right? How are their parents you represent feeling about this program?
I'm actually quite surprised to hear your other panelists' comments, because as a parent, that's part of a network of childcare centers, because my baby goes to a nonprofit. That's a daycare that's run by a nonprofit. And I'm in Facebook groups with many parents. I represent a lot of the parents and bridge the gap between childcare centers and the parents. From what we've seen, no one has seen the refunds or the rebates yet, where I am in downtown Toronto. So I'm very surprised to hear this.
How does it feel to have that experience when you see other provinces and parents are receiving those rebates?
It's frustrating and concerning, because this is something that we parents and childcare advocates have been fighting for and asking for and advocating for a very long time. We've finally been told that we're being given this, but there's little to no information available for parents, childcare advocates, and even the centers themselves, because a lot of the centers themselves are in the dark. They don't really understand how the program in totality, how it's going to be implemented, how long it's going to take, because they're saying that it's going to be $10 a day, but we're not actually seeing that, because it's an incremental decrease over time, over a few years. And there's no information about the permanence of this program, if it's going to last throughout successive governments. Because in the past, as you know, we had, we fought a lot for $15 minimum wage. We got that in January 2018, and then Doug Ford happened in June 2018 and took that away. So
It's gone back up.
oh well, it's gone back up now. Yeah. It took like 5 years for it to go back to past the $15 that we were promised 5 years ago, right?
Basically, there's a concern that if governments do change, this might not be in play.
That is a huge concern for parents and childcare advocates and centers themselves because the rules are always changing. They've been changing since this has been introduced. So it's very confusing.
And Brendan, you did this report, an investigation into it. This has been something that people have been advocating for a very long time, like Priska said, 50 years. What was your reporting revealed? What did your reporting reveal about how the rollout of $10 a day daycare is taking place in Ontario?
Yeah, so with my colleague Rachel Mendelson, we started digging into this in the late summer. When we saw that the province had changed the funding guidelines for operators that are opting into the program. And they also extended the deadline at that point from September 1st to November 1st. So we noticed in these changes that they had removed a lot of the accountability measures that had been in the previous guidelines. So, for example, they removed a section on undue profits that restricted how much profit the centers opting into the program would be able to make. And they also removed restrictions on what they could use the federal funding, what they could spend it on, and a number of other regulations. So we kind of dug in on how those changes came to be and why they came to be. And what we found was that over the summer there was an organized campaign and lobbying and public relations campaign by a group of for-profits, and that these changes followed that campaign, and that the province made certain concessions to get for-profit operators on board. And now that has led them into some conflict with the federal government because the changes potentially violate the province's agreement with the federal government. The agreement itself calls for that there must be a cost control framework, and to use the language of the agreement, it says that they must ensure the sound and reasonable use of public funds. And also, a lot of nonprofit childcare advocates believe that the money is already so tight that there isn't room for profit making. But as this conversation is already showing, what this system is, or what this program is trying to do, is transform the current patchwork mixed model or mixed market model of childcare into a largely publicly funded system. And so the challenge for both the federal and provincial government is, how do you accommodate all these different kinds of players in this dramatically new and transformed system where the rules are going to be different, but you can't lose any of the spaces that you have because the expansion goals are so ambitious. So you need everyone on board, but everyone has different interests and ways that they've been running their businesses. And so, that is the challenge that both governments face.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I hope it comes out the right way, because you mentioned that one of the government was trying to fix this patchwork that's happening right now. From what's happening right now, it feels as if it's creating even more of a patchwork. And I think there's so many different levels of government that are involved, right? It's 3 different levels of government?
Yeah, in Ontario, at least, because the municipalities deliver the funding actually flows through them, and they are the system managers at the local level. So there's the federal agreement with the province, that's the overarching agreement, and then from there, the province develops its own funding rules, and then those are delivered and implemented by the municipalities. So.
And I know from, I remember trying to find daycare when my kids were little, and the waiting list, incredible waiting list, and really super expensive. And I can imagine some of the for-profits that are in existence right now were created to fill that gap. And Nyla, I want to come to you now. We know from the Star's reporting that a coalition of for-profit daycares put pressure on the government to make changes to the program. Was your daycare one of them?
Yes, that's right. And I am on the advisory board of Minister of Education, Steve Flasher. So we have been definitely putting our side of the story and how we were concerned and we are right now. So for profit for us, the operator like us, we had a concern about the bottom line. About our investment, the invested capital in the centers that our franchisees, our partners have put in. And they are almost like $1 million project from a scratch to build it up to the entirely ready for the community. And the other areas that we are concerned, like how they are going to cover under this program the cost of the loan, mortgage interest of the investment, monthly mortgage that payment requires. It is a serious consideration for them in this new funding, how they're going to accommodate these things and how we can remain like financially stable.
Do you
So
think it's
our
unfair?
franchisees, sorry, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, as I mentioned before, I think a lot of for-profits are there to fill the gap that was there before, something that the government failed to do in the past. But do you think it's fair to have, a PR agency and to do this without the involvement of all the players? Shouldn't everybody be at the table to discuss this?
For sure, I totally agree, and they have quite a bit of non-for-profit representation and to represent themselves. But for profit, they had now, as they're inclined, as we heard, like they have extended from September, and it was supposed to be the end date. They had it now November, which is fast approaching. They try to get different parties on board to hear. And as we heard from our Toronto Star Investor Group, that they have come to know that how they have lifted up that cap that they had it initially on the profit margin. And also a lot of the other things they're trying to talk about, and still there are some gray areas that we haven't got the clear answer, but at least they have the representation on the board to they are hearing their concerns, they are trying to see what the concerns are and where are we coming from and what is, and because definitely the one assurance that we are getting here is they cannot fulfill the community requirement without the fair share or without having for-profit with them partnering in this CWLCC agreement. So definitely they need us to partner there and to provide that big role to properly execute and meet the need of the community here.
Okay, I want to come to Cassidy next because I can hear you. You're having a reaction here. Go ahead.
Oh, I just can't believe that we are having a serious conversation about for-profit centers' bottom lines when the majority of childcare providers in Ontario aren't even being included in the program. Like, I really can't believe that we're having a serious conversation here about the financial stability of profit-based businesses while most families who are attending home-based childcare aren't even going to be eligible for this program. That's the real conversation that needs to be had. And to sit here and sort of listen to someone fight for, well, I should be able to pay my private mortgage with public funds, while I'm sitting here caring for families who aren't going to see a dollar of this because on every level of government, home providers are largely ignored.
Because being an unlicensed daycare
Has
home provider,
excluded us
you're not even
from
part
the
of the
program.
conversation.
And, we're yelling and screaming, look at us, look at us. We are caring for the majority of these families. We are the majority of the available spaces. Why are we not being included in this? Why is there not being framework built to figure out how to create oversight to disperse the funds? I mean, this is a larger conversation because there obviously does need to be proper oversight to ensure that funds are used appropriately.
And it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And so obviously with unlicensed, because there's not a lot of direct oversight at this time, I'm not advocating for funds to be dispersed to individual people like myself. But what I am advocating for is for there to be an overhaul of the current system. Licensing needs to be re-examined. The government needs to stop farming it out. It needs to bring it back under its own wing, and it needs to create framework for the people who are the backbone of the childcare industry to be included.
I'm sure someone's watching this and they're thinking, if you want to be part of this $10 a day daycare program, why not just become licensed?
That's right.
I think it's really important, really, really important for people to understand what licensing for an individual like myself in Ontario actually looks like. If I was to become licensed, I have very limited options. Because these are private entities that dispense the licenses, it's governed by postal code typically. So in my postal code, there are two licensing agencies. One is a not-for-profit, one is a very well-known for-profit agency. In order to work for either of them, I would have to become employed as an independent contractor. And I also want to just give a clear definition of what that means. An independent contractor is not the same as an employee. I would have functionally no workers' rights. I would not be entitled to sick days, vacation, overtime, and this is really important. I, as a childcare worker, would not be entitled to a minimum wage under a licensed agency. I would not be entitled to a minimum wage. There are, due to the patchwork nature of the licensing system and because it's private entities, there are a variety of structures by which these agencies dispense licensing. So I'm only going to speak to the way it's done in my area, just because that's, what I know in my area. I know this is probably the most common business structure for licensing individuals. They would set my fees, and then they would absorb roughly 30% of that fee. And I would be left with the remainder of that. And I would be expected to, out of that remainder, cover 100% of my own costs: food, supplies, general overhead. Of course, running a daycare out of a home requires additional resources, electricity, things like that. And they would offer no relief for that, but they would be absorbing 30% of the set fee that they charge.
That's a lot of missing money, missing dollars.
It's a very unreasonable structure. And, I'd like to be clear, the majority of home providers in Ontario are unlicensed. If it was a fair system, if it was an equitable system, if people felt like they weren't being exploited by it, they would just get licensed. And women, and there's a lot of them, in the face of being excluded from this program, would rather shut down than join an agency.
Well, that's not something you want to hear. Earlier today, we received a letter from 4 provincial and national childcare organizations, including Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare, the Association of Early Childhood Educators Ontario, Childcare Now, Canada's Childcare Advocacy Association, and the Childcare Resource and Research Unit. The letter reads in part, "We are writing to express concerns about the direction and approach of the rollout of the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Plan in Ontario. The province's implementation has been halting and shambolic since the signing of the Canada-Ontario Agreement in March 2022, creating confusion and uncertainty for parents, childcare staff, service providers, and municipal partners. The province has also failed to follow through on commitments to community engagement, transparency, and accountability." So Tracy, what did you think I want to go back to Nyla, but I also want to talk to you about this letter and what the concerns are. But what did you think when you heard for-profits were putting pressure on the Ontario government to change the agreement?
They did. And so at this, instead of September the 1st, it was an extension to opt in up until November the 1st. Um, so, so their voice was heard. The government bent the rules and adjusted the guide. But at the end of the day, this is public funding. It's taxpayers' dollars. And I just want to see accountability. So with this new guideline adjustment, the for-profit doesn't have to submit audited financial statements. It's important. These are public dollars. We should know where the funding is going. So we need to continue to work with the government and say, okay, but and what else can we do to make those changes? If I could just speak to Cassidy as well and to Nyla, every community has come on and had a different first day of readiness to implement the program. So Sudbury is not a very large. We were one of the first communities out the gate to get the running, and that's why we have buy-in and most of the organizations were able to refund families before September the 1st. There is one community that I just heard in that received their opting in letters just yesterday. So they have until the end of the year to get their funds out to their families. But the guidelines were very specific that once you sign the opting in agreement, that you had 20 days to refund families, and, and other processes that needed to be completed. So for an operator, it's very clear. But for a family who hasn't received those funds, I encourage them to talk to their provider to say why not and when. And could you please open those doors to communication a little bit further? You might have saw me do a little wave a minute ago. Our licensing program advisor from the Ministry of Education Early Years Division has just walked in to license my program right here. So the licensing could be and looks a little bit different for a licensed home provider agency, but for a licensed childcare provider, for profit or not for profit, has the same guidance documents, the Child Care and Early Years Act, that needs to be implemented and and oversight by the Ministry of Education at least annually, and they come in and do two spots. So the accountability for licensing is, our reporting is immense, and that's good because I'm using public dollars, and families deserve to have high quality, transparent childcare, and to know that when they leave their children in a space, it's a safe space. We've heard horror stories about unlicensed programs, and you might have heard horror stories about a licensed program, but it's about accountability and how and what families and children deserve, and our teams. um, two, two licensed home provider agencies that overview licensed homes in Ontario, I'm very familiar with. And the additional supports that those agencies provide to their home providers are amazing. Our city here, our municipality, also support financially the transformation from unlicensed to a licensed home. So please speak to your municipality. Consider moving to a licensed system. It's
Well, Tracy, I want to move on a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe you can have a conversation with Cassidy because I saw Cassidy shaking her head. Priska, you're hearing all of this. You're a parent. All you want to do is get a spot for your child, but we also live in an environment where these jobs are mostly held by women who obviously should deserve to be paid well. You hear all this that's happening. You think what?
As a parent, there's two things that I want to touch on that was brought up. First, Tracy had mentioned that parents should talk to our childcare providers about opting in. But a lot of childcare providers have opted in. They've requested to opt in, but they're waiting for approval. For example, in Toronto, we have to, childcare providers have to wait for the municipal government to approve their opt-in. So until that happens, there's no refunds being it's not put into effect yet because they have to be approved. Then there's the refund schedule that they have to follow, the incremental refunds, right? So that's one thing that I want to touch on. The other thing was what Cassidy mentioned about how many child care providers are being left out of this. But a very major concern for parents is how many parents are left out of this, because this plan only applies to parents with children under 6. So what does that mean for us parents? Does that mean that our childcare needs suddenly disappear once our child turns 7? Why are we not eligible for parents who are, who have children over the age of 6 until 12 or older? We can't qualify for $10 a day because our child's no longer.
I think the assumption is that you would be going to school.
I mean, are you going to leave a 7-year-old by themselves? I don't think any parent would leave a 7-year-old by themselves to their own devices, after school time until they're able to come home from work or wherever they are, right? So our childcare needs far exceed longer than this age limit that they're imposing, and it doesn't make any sense. And That's a really big problem.
We reached out to the Ministry of Education to have Minister Stephen Lecce on the program. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it, but they did send a statement. It reads, our government's plan will save hardworking parents on average $6,000 this year and $12,000 by next year, putting money directly back into parents' pockets. We delivered a deal that reduces costs, protects parental choice, creates 86,000 more childcare spaces, and provides Ontario parents with the largest array of supports to raise a child, including by maintaining the Ontario Childcare Tax Credit. And that was a statement from Minister Lecce. Brendan, how do the feds feel about Ontario making changes to this agreement?
Yeah, so in the course of our reporting, we obtained a letter from Karina Gould, the minister responsible for childcare federally, that she sent to Minister Lecce, expressing her concern about these changes to the funding guidelines. At this point, they haven't done anything drastic. You know, the agreement allows them to impose financial penalties to withhold a certain amount of the federal funding. You know, if Ontario doesn't implement a cost control framework, they haven't taken that step yet. They've just done this step where they're kind of putting them on notice. And the province is still in the process right now of developing the funding rules for 2023 and beyond. So what's happening, right, like the funding guidelines that were changed were just for this year. It's just kind of a transition year.
But the feds already gave money to the province, right?
Yes, for this year, yeah. And I think what the federal government was doing and what Minister Gould was doing with that letter was saying, we're watching. And, you know, that if these changes to the funding guidelines persist beyond this year, you know, there might be more of a drastic action taken.
Does that mean that they'll give less money or they'll stop the program? Because I'm sure a lot of daycare owners and even parents are concerned about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that remains to be seen. I mean, I think what Minister Gould's letter to Minister Lecce asked for was an explanation about why these changes came to be and what their plans are going forward. And they asked to be consulted on any kind of future similar changes. So I think that's just kind of the first step to say that we're watching closely, but what happens next, I think, remains to be seen.
Nyla, for-profit daycares, I think, make up 30% in this province. Moving forward, moving forward, just hearing what might happen to the program, do you worry that this might actually make the program crumble, what for-profits are asking for?
Somewhat, yes, because a lot of the thing is it still doesn't align with the system. And as we heard Tracy as well, like I understand there is the taxpayers' money, and we have to be mindful where they're spending it, and where the government stand is, and how they are collaborating with this agreement with the federal. But there has to be they need to synchronize this system for both the parties, like for both, for profit and non-for-profit, because they both are subjected to the same monitoring, same compliances, quality assurances under the same regulation of the Child Care Act. So why there's such a big gap between for-profit and non-for-profit? And specifically, if I have to bring it right now on the table, in terms of the wages, the minimum wages of the REC, it is very good that under this system, they are a minimum wage floor of the REC, and annual increment is a step that they are taking in the right direction under this CWELCC. But however, for profits, we are still struggling to retain these staff as under the non-profit centers, because for profit are able to give average like 3 to 4 per hour more than the profit centers. This is one of the biggest challenges right now we are facing, that when we have these ECEs, ECAs freshly graduated, they join us, and once they get experience, they move forward and they try to get the positions under the non-profit organizations, because they're getting the higher compensation over there. So
Nyla, I just want to move on a little bit. We only have a few minutes left, and I want to get Cassidy in.
That has to be same for both.
Cassidy, you know, what would you like to see moving forward?
You know, Tracy's mentioned the workforce crisis, and she's encouraged me to seek out licensing. I will seek out licensing when the system is no longer as exploitive as it is. There's a workforce crisis because women are not paid fairly in this field, in for-profit centers, in not-for-profit centers, in home daycares, licensed or unlicensed. Everyone is struggling in this area. And particularly with home daycare, I would love to see the government take another look at it. You know, I think like everything, there's a patchwork of quality when it comes to licensing. And because it is third-party entities, there is a huge variance in how well providers are treated by those individual agencies. So I know Tracy mentioned that in her area, she feels that licensed providers are treated very well. I do have to disagree with her only because I am a part of the network of these women. And if they were treated well, they would be joining. And the fact of the matter is they are not joining because they are not treated well. I'm sure there are some agencies that are fine. There are obviously licensed providers who are operating now and are happy doing it. But clearly the majority are not wanting to participate. And it can't possibly be because we're all doing something untoward and don't want to be overseen. I live in downtown Toronto. The wages that the licensed agency would offer me wouldn't feed one of my children, much less all three of them. And that's not reasonable. You can't ask me to join. And, the supports are not non-existent, but minimal, in my opinion. There are limited grants and limited supports. And really what needs to happen is this system needs to stop being farmed out to a patchwork of independent parties and some government involvement, and it needs to be brought back into one cohesive, overseen project.
Tracy, I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds. What else does the government need to address for daycares?
Absolutely. We are in a workforce crisis, no matter who you work for or where you work for in Ontario. We need an $18 start, as mentioned in the guide with the agreement. It is not the starting point. We have a roadmap to universal childcare in Ontario put together with the coalition and ACO, and this map states that we need to be starting wages of $25 an hour for registered early childhood educators. We can't forget the rest of the staff that work in our programs and support everyone and the children. So you're going to hear loud and clear. October 18th is Childcare Worker ECE Appreciation Day, and the workforce crisis that we are worth more is what our focus is going to be, and looking forward to a national campaign as well that'll be coming out at the end of November. So all families deserve it, all children deserve it, and we need to work together and not close one space. We have 2 programs in Ontario that are on hold and have closed their doors right now because of workforce. So it's time that we really work with our 3 levels of government to move this forward. We are in a good spot, but we have lots of work to do, and we can definitely influence.
Well, thank you all so much. That's all the time we have today. I remember being a parent and one year paying $23,000 for daycare. So it is a big problem. And obviously, we should also mention the workers that make this industry possible. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.